morning, you fucking nerds. How are we all doing today?
Oh, I can't complain.
Yeah,
No.
doing well.
Cold.
I'll still listen if you do want to complain. I'll just let you know when I zone out.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, who cares? But yeah, so today we are going to be doing the Leagues of Votann. Now, get your copies of Deep Rock Galactic, get your Gimli Axe props, and put Diggy Diggy Hole on repeat because we are covering the Leagues, as requested by our good friend James. Now, James, I have to ask, out of all the factions that you wanted to cover first, why'd you choose Leagues of Votann?
Because they're little cool dudes. I don't know. I like some of their minis. I've got a couple of them, but yeah, they're cool little dudes. Yeah,
Fair enough.
They like
I guess
they kind of look like miniature like space marines. Like they're like bulky and yeah.
Sacrilege. Space
Nah,
Marines are so much cooler.
I'll allow it.
I just feel like they're like the space marines of like, what is it, Xenos? Like,
I see why you think that, but I'm going to explain in this video why you're wrong. But I do see why you're going with that. Now, Corbin, what do you know about the Leagues of Votann?
I, to be honest, don't know a great deal. I know probably base level of their lore. I find them pretty mid, for the most part. I mean, usually in media, I can get behind a dwarf. You know, I just think that, and it's probably not their fault, it's more GW's, the way that they wrote them off a long time ago and then brought them back, and they just don't have as much lore as a lot of the other factions, and I think that's the main reason why I haven't shown too much interest in them.
Yeah, that's fair, because when I was researching this, I kind of felt that too. I originally said, this will be a quick episode, because it's the Leagues. They're the newest army, they're the newest faction, they probably have the least amount of lore. And then as I looked them up, I remembered, this is Warhammer we are talking about, and that I was a fucking idiot.
Even the faction with the least amount of lore is like...
My god, there is so much I have to cut out of this episode, because there actually is a decent amount of lore, and despite the fact they have no novels.
Wait, so are they from fantasy, like, or are they strictly from 40k, just from earlier editions?
I will get into that as we get into this episode, my friend. Now, James,
Yes.
when I say the word Votann, what do you think a Votann is, and why would it need a league?
Well, I mean, I know that they're
There are no wrong answers except the ones that are wrong.
Well, mine are probably wrong, but I know that they're little space marine dudes. That is literally all I know.
And they play football.
They what?
They're leagues.
Oh, okay. I was like thinking that they were part of that, like, what's that game? The Blood
Ball.
Blood Bowl, yeah.
I thought they were
that's
like from that or something.
No, that's strictly fantasy. But there are dwarves in it, if I remember right.
It's actually not strictly fantasy, but I don't
Is it?
believe. No.
That's something we're gonna have to investigate in an episode one day, because I actually do want to know more about it.
I've seen their like models that, and they look cool. Like, I kind of like a little bit of like NFL, so they're cool looking, but I have no idea how they play.
Well, I learned an interesting thing about Blood Bowl, actually, just to go completely off the rails already.
Already, yeah. What? 5 minutes in? Yeah.
They're a separate universe, and because all the universes are apparently linked by the same warp, it was
I'm so sick of multiverses.
Yeah, it's a multiverse situation where an NFL playbook actually dropped through the warp and landed on a planet in like a separate galaxy, and that's how they learned to play it, and that's the lore behind the start of Blood Bowl. They thought it was a gift from the gods, and so they treat it like their religion.
It just sounds so stupid that it sounds fun.
Yeah. Of course, it's a way to get, like, you know, sports nerds to buy plastic from GW.
So, to kick this off, so that way we can get out of any confusion for everybody. First things first that I have to mention is, what is an STC? Now, an STC in the Warhammer universe stands for...
Is that something you could get from not wearing a...
Yes.
No, wait, that's something.
Yes. Yeah, let's go with that, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
it was STD, then it was STI, now it's STC.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mechanicus gets it through toasters. So an STC is a standard template construct. Now what that is it's typically a box, or it's like an object that contains a lot of Dark Age of technology back in the days from when humanity was at its highest strength and its peak of its technology. And inside that box can contain anything from like schematics on how to create a new ship, a new type of weapon, or like energy converters and that kind of thing. Or it could contain within it an item that is just like mind-bogglingly stupid, and it could potentially like destroy the planet, for example, or it could end up revitalizing a whole culture worth of technology. It's like a MacGuffin that the Adeptus Mechanicus will chase after.
It's a blueprint for how to do things. Usually they contain more than one, but because it's from the Dark Age of technology, when they're recovered, often they can only pull like one or two of the blueprints out of it.
Yeah, it's
is it
basically
like a Pandora's box, or is it
sort of, yeah, but for technology.
Yep.
Have you ever seen Spy Kids, the first one?
Yes.
Do you remember when they put in like this little barcode thing into the microwave, and then out came a McDonald's Happy Meal?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that kind of shit. Imagine that. For example, to talk about like how important these things are, 3 guardsmen stumbled across one of them and then gave it to the Mechanicus. And you know how those 3 guardsmen were rewarded?
Death.
They were each given their own world to rule.
Oh,
that is how important STCs are. Just to point out how important they are. Now, the reason why they are also important is because since the Dark Age of technology, when AI and robots like rose up against humanity, they were, Terminator style. They were absolutely against AI in the current 40K. They absolutely do not abide by it at all and consider it heresy, and they will purge you because no AI and no robots are allowed.
Which is why you see the servitor skulls and things like that use a human brain and a computer basically running a human brain to avoid, that's like their way around using artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and that's why skull probes like Larry above us is controlled by a human that was probably a criminal and has now been servitorized. And it's not automated. If that door that just opened by itself when you walk nearby, odds are there's a human brain in that door somewhere that just opened it for you because they saw you. The very idea that something is controlled by AI is tantamount to heresy, and you better hold on to your metal butt cheeks because you're about to be purged.
Yeah. And then sanitarized.
Yeah, basically. And destroyed because you're an AI robot and you need to die. Now, this will come back into the episode later. Now, space dwarves are not new to Warhammer. The Leagues of Votann were originally called squats. And I'm going to pull up a picture for you here.
And some factions still refer to them as such.
I still refer to them as it, to be honest.
Oh, no, like, even in lore, they're still referred to as squats.
Oh, yeah. Because some of them probably are, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just them there with the classic. They came out in a episode of magazine of Rogue Trader, and that's some of the classic art there of them taking on some Bad Moon's orcs. The squats were originally humans that were sent out into the center of the universe, like center of our galaxy, because inside that galaxy is precious minerals and very important things that are good for building and maintaining the Imperium. Well, maintaining humanity before it was the Imperium, and then the Age of Strife came along and they were all separated from each other. These humans that were in the core had to learn to adapt really quickly to survive these horrible sorts of ways of living. And because of space physics, eventually because of gravities, these humans were shrunk in size over time, forced to live in caves in these desolate planets and asteroids. And because of their indomitable ability to just push through shit and get it done, they ended up becoming basically space dwarves.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess what their High Gothic Latin name for them is?
Spacis dwarfus. Am I close?
Not a bad guess.
Not a bad guess. Homo sapiens rotundus. I think that is the best thing about them.
Yeah.
I like that one better.
Yeah. So eventually, these squats traded with orcs and Eldar, and then ended up hating them, and then fighting against them. And the problem is that it just felt very copy and paste from fantasy dwarves, but to a space setting.
Yeah. I gotta correct you on the trading with orcs. I don't believe they ever did, and they've been listed as the orcs have been listed as their biggest rivals.
They did trade with orcs and Eldar, and
Ah.
then they ended up fighting against them.
True. Yeah, because
so-
I read that they still trade with Eldar and Tau, but that they've always had a long-standing rivalry or like disagreement with orcs and the Mechanicus.
That's the Leagues of Votann, but originally in the beginning, the squats did trade with the orcs.
Okay.
And then, obviously, stereotypes, dwarves don't like orcs.
Yeah.
Okay, so even though they're classed as because I thought, like, Space Marines, anything under the banner of Space Marines, they sort of work together.
Mhm.
And then the same with, like, Chaos. Like, even though they're, like, they go through 4 different gods, but they're still like, trying to do one thing, like, which is...
We need to differentiate here. Space Dwarves, the Votann, nothing to do with Space Marines at all. Completely separate.
No. So what I'm saying is, so I thought Xenos were similar. Like, they were all, they worked together for, like, a common goal.
Oh, I see what you mean. No. Everybody's out for themselves.
Only in the Tau do they do that.
Yeah, and then they end up getting their ass handed to them. So none of the factions really, work well with each other. Except for the Imperium of Man, where, like, the Sisters of Battle, the Imperial Guard, Space Marines, Mechanicus, those factions do work together.
Okay.
And Chaos, Space Marines, and Chaos Demons do sort of work together, depending on which faction you're talking about. The others don't work. None of them work well with each other.
Because I thought, even though they, like, the Thousand Suns, go off one god, and the Death Guard go for another god, they still worked, like, for Chaos. Like, they're still, worked.
They do. Here's the thing. They do. But the thing is that this is where the whole game meta comes into it, where there has to be a plausible reason as to why these factions would still be fighting against each other, because you could have Death Guard fighting up against Thousand Suns despite the fact they're still on Chaos's side.
And it has happened. Yeah. It has happened many times, actually.
For much the same reason, you'll have Custodes fighting off against, Imperial Guard for some reason. For whatever reason, maybe they've each deemed the other as a heretic. I don't know. But, like, they, in the lore at the very least, the Imperial forces do commonly mostly work together. There is some, like, miscommunication potentially, where the factions might be fighting against each other,
or they get deemed heretics because of
or they get deemed heretics,
and then they get executed.
Yeah. Well, sorry, you filed these forms wrong. You're about to die.
Yeah, you witnessed the demon on your planet. No, you didn't. I'm killing all of you.
Yeah. So, for example, the Leagues of Votann for these space dwarves might still end up trading with, like, the Adeptus Mechanicus or the Imperial Guard, for example, but that doesn't mean they're not going to fight with them either. So it's not like Age of Sigmar, where it's like all the forces of order versing all the forces of chaos or destruction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more segregated and a little bit more
more racist.
Let's go with that.
They all think that they're the best, and they all fight off against each other.
Yeah, because I just assumed that everyone, like, in the Chaos camp sort of, like, work together.
Chaos don't even get along with each other.
No, the Chaos gods don't even get along with each other.
Orcs don't get along with each other. Like, a lot of the factions don't get along with themselves.
But I just assumed, like, with, just in looking at when purchasing and stuff, like, anything that's under Xenos seems to be, like, alien, except for Votann.
That's just for marketing purposes, just so that way you know where they are.
Yeah. But I just thought, maybe they're, like, together. Or...
Yeah. No, the like, specifically, just as an example, the Tyranids have never worked with another faction, ever. They eat biomass, and they do their own thing, and they don't work with any other faction. They
The only
use
the
the gene
only
stealers.
I was about to say the only one that they might work with is gene stealers, and that's it.
They still eat the gene stealers. Like, they don't
Yeah.
even really work with the gene
You
stealers.
could-
They just use them.
You could play, you and your mate could play as Tyranids, and the other one playing as Gene Stealers, and fighting off against each other, and that could still be lore accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just comes under that. Does that make a little bit more sense for you now?
Yeah, because it's kind of like I sort of look at it as two different things, like with the game aspect and then the lore aspect. Like I know that if you only had orcs and the person you were versing only had space marines, like that makes sense, but you wouldn't necessarily have orc versus orc because
Orcs kill other orcs all the time.
The only reason why the only reason why the orcs haven't taken over the galaxy is because they can't stop beating the shit out of each other.
Oh yeah, orcs like fighting other orcs because orcs are strong and humies are weak.
Gosh,
yeah. So I love that you chose that example.
I mean, yeah, it's the only one that I could think of. But like, you wouldn't have like, I don't know, maybe Chaos Space Marine versus Chaos Space Marine.
You would.
Yeah, no, they fight for control.
Yeah, absolutely.
They fight for control of the planets inside the warp all the time. Like they will fight for control over demon worlds. They will go and raid each other's worlds for resources and things all the time. They might just go around and like kill a bunch of world eaters might just go around and kill a bunch of Thousand Suns just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
So the only ones that wouldn't really would then be like anything Imperium then. Like you wouldn't really have a game.
Nope, you can. Like when Corbin and I play his Ultramarines versus my Imperial Fists, that can be lore accurate because it can just feel like Spider-Man meme where like pointing fingers like, I thought you were a heretic. No, I thought you were the heretic.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. It really depends.
So, honestly, if you came up with any game of any faction whatsoever and they were fighting each other on the tabletop, there's probably a lore accurate reason as to why that would happen in the lore.
So that would work even with tournaments. Like if you went to a tournament and
absolutely
you were versing like a Chaos Space Marine against your Chaos, they wouldn't be, they'd be okay with that.
Happens. Well, it's not that they're okay with it. It's just teams playing against two teams playing against each other. But there's still a lore accurate reason as to why that would happen.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on from that.
Well, that's an important thing to cover.
It is an important thing to cover as well because I didn't realize that we did kind of gloss over that. But yeah, there is a lore accurate, like even with Leagues of Votann, they rarely would fight against each other, as I'll explain later on. But there is a a precedent for it.
Yeah, because they have different leagues, which is like their family groups. And if there is like a disagreement or they want something that they have or they feel
or
like
a grudge or whatever,
But
we'll get into that as we go on.
Because I kind of view it as like, okay, so if you read Lord of the Rings, like the books, like they have totally different, like story-wise as compared to like the miniature game. Like, even though they have like, elves and they have hobbits and things like that, but I just thought with Warhammer, they might have been two separate things. Like the game, what the game does and then what the lore does might be two different sort of things. So that's why I thought maybe it's more segregated.
It's a bit more segregated, but at the same time, like if I brought up my army of Imperial Fist versus his Ultramarines, there is a lore accurate reason as to why that could happen, like I said. But when it comes to named characters is where it gets a bit more like, no, it doesn't work. Like, for example, if my Torgarodon takes on his Guilliman, that didn't happen in the lore. But, forces wise, like, Space Marine versus Space Marine definitely does happen.
But I suppose that couldn't happen like if I had my Chaos Space Marine with an Abaddon and you had the same, like with a named person. Like, I suppose that could be where it could be hard.
Yeah, the name characters parts is where, like, it draws the line because that's converging with the lore. But then again, you could, in your own headcanon, you could come up with it. It's a little bit more freelance and a little bit more loosey-goosey, which is why a lot of people flock to it, because there is sort of like no narrative rules. But you can play narrative play if you want to, and that's why a lot of people like it.
Yeah. Would narrative play be... I know we're getting a bit off topic, but narrative play, would that be more like objective play?
No, so narrative play is like when you come up with a lore story of what you're doing and so there might be a more...
replaying a novel or something like that.
Or there might be like a more objective heavy thing, like my orcs are trying to like steal a bunch of shit from Adeptus Mechanicus, and
Yeah.
that make that part of the objective because you've written it around a story.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Or like you've only got 500 points of Space Marines against a 2,000 point army of orcs, and this is a story that I'm trying to replicate. Or I don't know. It could be anything.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Anyways, so with the squats, it did feel like copy paste from fantasy, and GW felt like that they weren't doing them like proper service, so they then discontinued the lines of squat models.
Also,
Of
no one
minis.
bought them.
And also no one bought them, and they just told it up to them all being eaten by the Tyranids.
Yeah, which they refer to as the Bane.
Yeah, because they were the ones that ended them essentially, or at least that's what we thought. Now they got their new army release a couple of years ago, as the Leagues of Votann. They are the newest army addition to Warhammer 40k. As far as I know, that origin story I just told you is still technically correct, and now they are the Leagues of Votann. But now with the fall of Cadia and the Great Rift splitting the galaxy in two, it has now created opportunities for these leagues to come out of the Galactic Middle Core, to start trading with other factions, and to start fighting with them in the Warhammer universe. Now, the Leagues of Votann are a collection of space dwarves that harvest and mine the minerals of the galaxy's galactic core as they are being led by the Votann. Now, like I said, what did you think of Votann was?
Well, I just thought they were like a miniature Space Marine.
Miniature Space Marine.
Yeah.
This is the first of many surprises. How you decide. The Votann are AI computers, also called ancestor cores, that the dwarves worship.
So what's the actual term for it? They're called the ancestor cores. Votann ancestor cores. Yeah.
That's what I just said.
But I thought...
Oh, was it? Oh, I thought you just referred to them as just the Votann. Sorry.
No, that's good.
But I thought you said that they were human.
They are, but they have these AI machines that they travel the galaxy with, and worship them as gods, or near gods at least.
So the kin are human descendants, essentially, but they worship AI, like giant AI ancestor cores.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the only ones that can communicate with these machines, with these Votann, are a group of kin, and kin are what are called these space. Well, that's what they call themselves and each other. These group of kin are called Grimnirs, and that's them there. And as you can see, they've kind of got like a Nordic Merlin vibe to them.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, the reason they look like Space Marines is the armor that they've developed, essentially for mining and surviving in the galactic core.
Hmm.
So
it's
not just war armor. It's also armor to survive the void, and that's why it's called void armor.
Yeah.
So did they find the armor and adapt it to themselves, or did
basically?
They
no, they made everything themselves in their forges.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very dwarf.
They're
like
very
the classic dwarf.
Yeah, they're very they're very classic dwarf, but they also have their own spin on it. They're very what's the word? They're very much into craftsmanship, and they're very much into making themselves self-sufficient. And on top of that, not just the AI machines and the AI robots that they follow, but they also have AI robots known as Ironkin that help them and help them fight their wars. These robots are not slaves or servants to the kin. These Ironkin are treated like equals and treated like peers.
Which is wild.
Yeah, super wild, considering the fact that when you have a stark contrast to Adeptus Mechanicus, where the sheer idea of AI would send them into like an absolute buffering mania.
Yeah. And the fact that their AI hasn't turned on them.
And it has never had.
So with the AI aspect, then I'm guessing that's why the Imperium are so against them, would be because they...
Well, their stance with the humanity is that they do trade with them, but they're very closely guarded with their secrets. If you're not kin, they're not going to tell you anything. So, say for example, if an Adeptus Mechanicus somehow manages to find himself on one of the ships or in one of the holds, and then finds these ancestor cores, you're going to be killed, or that could start like a potential small war.
Yeah, the Imperium doesn't like them because the Imperium doesn't like anything that isn't the Imperium.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
certain
honestly, vice
members.
versa.
Yeah, but a certain like members on a planet far out in the far reaches might do like dealings with them, but the Imperium itself would be like, no. That's why they're labeled as Xenos. They're not even recognized as humans. They've deviated away from the Imperial truth, and yeah.
Yeah, so the kin have sometimes been misidentified by humans and Xenos alike as like different abhumans or like alien species. Like for instance, the kin have been mistakenly known to both the Tau and humans as like demiurge, to the Eldari as the Heliosi ancients, and to various other peoples like the Grome and the Craig. But do you know what they prefer you to call them?
Well,
They don't fucking care. They could give a green skin's wet fart what you call them. They don't give a shit what you think about them.
I love the term greenskin's wet fart.
Yeah, I know, I love it because it's just honestly true. Because, for example, like an insight into their pragmatic minds, in one of their first fights with Chaos, they were fighting World Eaters, and they put up a great fight, and it was actually looking good. But then they looked at the numbers and said, "We got all the salvage and objectives we needed, and any more is going to cost too many lives. Fall back." The Corn Worshippers were like, "You fucking cowards, you pussies, what are you doing? Come back here and fight. You cowards!" And the kin just went, "Okay," and fucking dipped anyways. They don't care.
No, they're all about their minerals, their wealth, and looking after themselves.
I mean, speaking of metals, they're pretty metal.
They've got a really nice, like super hyper technology aesthetic to them that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Eh, I find it okay. I find them like Space Marine light.
I think that's why because when they were re-released was when I first started getting into like Warhammer, but I was more Age of Sigmar. But I was like, that's when they started coming out. And I was like, oh, these like they're different to the Space Marines. Like the Space Marines are like the poster boys, and these guys were like, okay, well these guys aren't the poster boys, but they're still pretty cool looking. Like they're still, and some of their models, like they've got like really cool. I like the vehicles that they have. Like I'm more like, because the Space Marine ones seem very like it's either a tank or a bike. Like they're very, whereas the Votann, they had like really cool looking like vehicles, like the little bubble sort of looking cars. And
I strongly disagree, but that's okay. You can have your opinion. But
well, just from
vehicles...
when I saw them, like they had like cool looking vehicles.
No, you can have your opinion. I much prefer the look of Space Marine and Astra Militarum vehicles to like the bubbly little moon hoppers and like the Mars rovers that they drive.
I like the Mars rovery looking like vibe of them. Like they were just different. Like
for me, like anything that isn't Space Marine, I could give a toss about. But at the same time, there is that other side of them where I'm like, I do enjoy their aesthetic because it's so opposite to what the Space Marines are.
They all look like bubbles or eggs.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me aesthetically.
Yeah.
What comes first, the egg or the Space Marine?
Obviously the squat. Now, you're probably like, oh, Blake, that Ancestor Core was a good surprise. I'm sure with this faction there's going to be no other surprises, right? Well,
Wrong.
Here's a picture of a Leagues of Votann force. I just sent it to the group. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, take a load in on how many there are. Now, get a load of this. They're all clones.
Oh, okay.
They're all grown from these cloning machines called crucibles. And these crucible machines are connected to the ancestor cores, aka the Votann. And that data is used to create more kin. And that is why they have a sort of like pseudo-religious worship with the Votann, because whenever a kin or even an iron kin get damaged or get killed, their cerebral brain matter gets uploaded to the ancestor cores, and it's called returning to the ancestors. And then that data is then further used to bolster the databanks of the ancestor core and used to create future generations of kin.
So
Yeah.
was there one, and then they cloned from that one person, and like went from there, or was there like 50 of them, and then they just cloned them?
Oh no, there were probably hundreds.
You are asking the right questions, James, because that's where I was going to get into next. And if you look at that picture, all the kin don't look the same.
No,
because
that's what I was
it's
getting at. Yeah.
it's taken from a vast. It's assumed that it's taken from a vast collection of like gene samples, and they have a lot of gene samples to utilize. And then on top of that, there's how do I describe this? There's little variations that the Votann throw in there, and people would assume that would be like a downside or something that the others would look down on them for. But these little quirks or these like little attributes, like maybe darker skin, thicker skin, or like different eye colors, heads or whatever, like that kind of thing. It's looked at as like a virtue. Like that looks cool. Yeah, like you've got the blessing of the Votann because you're different.
Hmm.
But one thing that I find is very interesting is that they don't have psychers
At all.
at all. They don't really have a presence in the warp.
Oh.
Well, it would actually be quite dangerous for where they have all their bases to have psychers or a presence in the warp.
Yeah, because they don't really give off like a beacon in the warp. It just kind of look like, like say for example, if you're a normal human soul and you're looking in the Sea of Souls, you're looking into the warp and you see a normal human light, and it looks like that one human soul looks like a lamp, like bright to a degree, but not as bright as it could be. And now a League of Votann might be like a very small candle.
So I have a question.
If anything, yeah.
That wizard-looking guy of their codex art.
The Grim.
If he's not a psycho, what is he?
I actually don't know 100%, and I don't think there's anything lore about it, as far as I know. They just have this innate ability to commute with the Votann, and honestly, that's about it.
Yeah, that just raised that question because I've noticed him there, and you posted him earlier, and I'm just like, what is that guy doing if it's not warp fuckery?
Yeah,
but it does look very warp fuckery, doesn't it?
And that staff that he's carrying is actually like it's an electric stave. It's not actually like psycho based. Obviously, it's like psycho based used in terms of the game mechanics, but it's not actually psycho.
So it's just like channeling the thoughts of the ancient cores or something. That's some weird shit.
Yeah, essentially.
I feel like there's going to be like 3 Votann listeners that are screaming right now.
Honestly, if they did, I would want them to tell me what I got wrong, because as far as I can see, I'm currently reading it and I can't really see much about it.
I wouldn't give a shit what they say. No one cares about Votann players.
Yeah.
All 3 of them.
They trip over their beards.
They have less impressive beards than the Space Wolves. So, whatever.
Yeah, the real Nordic boys. Anyways, but here's the strange thing. Now I know what you're thinking. Blake, there cannot be another surprise about this faction we are yet to discover.
Oh wait, there's more.
Oh wait, is this one going to be interesting? Sorry. Keep going. Yeah, tell us more about the Votann, please, Blake.
The ancestor cores do have a presence in the warp, and I don't know how that's possible. Yeah, so holds are now, all kin are part of groups known as kindred, and all kindreds have what are called holds, which are their homes, but they're not all the same across the galaxy. For example, like holds could be fusions of fortifications, or cities, or complexes, or even just a strip mine. The largest of which may sprawl across like a whole like honeycomb sort of situation across the planet's surface, and these are called hold worlds. Others may be heavily armed like void stations, chains of domes across asteroids, or fleet ships, or anything like that. Now, and we'll get into all the different types of like kindreds types in a moment, But this is where it comes into the customization of making your own kindred and making making your own Space Marine chapter. So it's up to that like level of customization, that's really interesting.
Yeah, which is required basically for the different factions. They have that in all the different factions, and it's a great thing about Warhammer is that you can always bring your own flavor to it.
At the moment, there's only 4 main kindreds that have their own like sort of backstory and paint schemes and named characters, and we're just going to get into them now. So we have the Greater Thurian League.
That's a very dwarf name, eh?
Yeah. And the one thing I love about the Space Dwarves as well is that they have these sick ass logos for each of their sub factions. Now, the Greater Thurian League are basically the Ultramarines of these guys. They're the ones that stand for the most basic of principles of the Leagues of Votann, and they're the box of the cover art, and they're the main ones that everybody paints. They are like a deep sea green with white.
Yeah, they're the ones that look like eggs. Sometimes rotten eggs.
So these ones, they are the biggest. Now, this is the thing that I don't understand. They boast over 200 kindreds. Not kindreds. And I'm not entirely sure how big a kindred is, but I'm assuming it's like 80 to 100 to 150. Now, imagine that times 200. That's how big they are.
Yep, it's that would balance out with the numbers of other factions, I guess.
And then being the biggest one as well on top of that. Not exactly my favorite color scheme that I would go for, but I understand why it's the box art.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not a fan of the green and white like that, but
yeah, not in the way that they've done it, but I do see why. Like, it does have like an aesthetic that I do kind of like looking at.
yeah,
it is a bit of a weird like look to the eye, like that color scheme. Like it shouldn't go together, or not that shade of green anyway. Like
They just look like they're too like. It looks a bit too like what a modern person thinks the military would look like in a couple of years.
Yeah, because it's very like the green. I mean, yeah, it's very military green, but then like pure white. Like the army wouldn't have such a bright color. Like
I can understand it.
Metal plate.
I can understand it though, because how many factions are there, and how many different like color schemes they have had to do for every different army. Like they're gonna be running out of like color combinations by now.
I totally see it. It just looks very utility based. Like it just looks like what somebody would think that a space dwarf would look like, or like what a marine would look like in the next couple of years.
But it kind of looks like military mix with like clinical.
Yeah,
like clinical. Like in hospitals, everything is like white and clean, and
it looks a bit sterile. Yeah, I get what you mean.
So it's like it's a mix of like clinical and military.
Yeah, whereas for like space dwarves, I would have assumed more of a dirty color, or like maybe black and grey, but they know that's been done. And then they're like maybe black and white, that's been done.
Yeah, black and white, and all these different colors, yeah.
Yeah.
But the next one that we have to talk about is known as the Ymir Conglomeracy, and I'm going to pull that up now for you as well.
So how many? I know there's like, there's quite a few factions within the Space Marines, but how many factions are there within, like the Votann?
There's 4 main ones that have their own color schemes and have their own like backstories. And there are a couple of like minor ones that do have their own that I've had to cut out because there's not really much information on them. I'm assuming that they'll, like other Space Marine chapters, for example, they'll be fleshed out in future works. But yeah, at the moment we've only got these 4 to talk about. So the second one is Ymir Conglomerate. These ones are the wealthiest. They are into craftsmanship and technology. They're not the biggest, but they are a threat because of their weapons and void armor they create. And you can see they've got the whole red and black paint job look.
See, that looks a lot better. Like that color scheme is, it's a better look than the white and green.
I completely agree, and it's probably one of my more favorite ones. Yeah. And the next one we have are the Urani Surtur Regulates.
Do they have any like notable named characters from these like groups? That
I'm gonna get into that.
Yeah, you're gonna get into it.
Get into that. Yeah.
Because I haven't really heard of any named Votann really at all.
And there's a reason for that.
Yeah, because they got a bit of the Alpha Legion thing where they're like, oh, we keep to ourselves, we keep our secrets, and that's lazy writing in my opinion. But it's
I completely agree. So yeah, the Urani Surtur Regulates, or the URSR, are all about like courage, stoicism, or what sets these kin apart. They're all about endurance, and they're all green, or 50 Shades of Green.
Did you say USSR?
Stop that! You're not going into a song while I'm here.
No, you are SR. Yeah, that's my thought too when I was looking this up, and I'm like, hang on a minute.
Very close.
Yeah, very close.
Now I'm just picturing them with Russian accents.
Cut that out! Cut that out!
Yeah, I'm picturing the Russian, like, you know, she's not your girlfriend, she's our girlfriend. Yeah, so these ones are, again, not too much information, but they're more about like just getting the job done, and just more or less about enduring the hard difficulties of the galactic core.
In Leagues of Votann, you don't see the ancient core. The ancient core sees you.
Now, for the youngest kindred, the Cronus hegemony, however you say it. These ones are your fighting boys. These are your bar brawlers. These are your military boys, all about fighting. Their Votann demanded more information for their databanks and a hunger for conquest to attain that data, and their kin replied in kind. They have a color scheme of more of a black and deep yellow. So, yeah, it's a bit Imperial Fist and all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, they're the ones that are the quickest to anger, and it takes very little to offend them.
Yeah, and in the picture you posted, I'm seeing a lot of flames. Like guys holding a flamer, guys on fire behind them.
Yeah, it matches their vibes.
Yeah.
These are the ones that are all about grudges. Now, grudges are very specific to the Leagues of Votann. Grudges are like, say for example, a warband of orcs has just destroyed a League ship that contained a Votann in it. That League then writes down a grudge against that particular warband and that leader. Then the entire League will rise up and make sure that every single remnant of that orc band is burned and never heard of again. Just pure genocide them. It's like that goat scene in Schindler's List where he was like,
A rumor. That never happened.
they're just like pure genocide them. And that's a theme across most of the again, across all of the Leagues of Votann, but mainly the Cronus hegemony because they have the most grudges.
They do seem very, small man energy. The little chihuahua energy.
Yeah,
No, I get that.
Yeah, I totally see that too. And on top of that, the grudges play like that in the game as well. So but instead you get a thing called judgment tokens. And as I've just sent it, it's an army rule for the Leagues of Votann. It's called Eye of the Ancestors. So say for example, if you're running an army of Leagues of Votann, and each time an enemy unit destroys a League of Votann in your army, that enemy gains 1 judgment token. They can only ever have up to 2. But say for example, if you're then attacking that unit that has a judgment token on it, they get imminent threat, and that's add 1 to the hit roll, so it makes it easier for you to hit them. And then if they have 2 judgment tokens, it's called now we've got a grudge to settle, and add 1 to the hit roll and 1 to the wound roll.
I quite like that. That's good.
Oh, it's just so good. It's just like, this is I'm gonna write that grudge down. You just did that. I saw that.
Yeah.
It's just so petty and vindictive.
I'm telling Dad.
Yeah. Dad's gonna kill you.
Yeah. He's gonna make a bunch of kin that are gonna swarm you. Those seem to be the main 4.
Yeah, as I was about to say, those are the main 4 because they have the most lore about them, but even then not that much lore, and they're the only ones that have come out with an official paint scheme. There are a bunch of other major and minor leagues, but yeah, those are the only 4 that have ever come out, and you can make your own. But yeah,
It seems very like they were released not too long ago. You know, maybe
about
a
a year or
couple.
two ago.
Yeah, but like, there's been nothing like since 10th edition has really come into play.
Mhm.
There's been like no, not that I've seen anyway. Could be totally wrong, but like even when you go on like a lot of the pages like Gap Games and stuff like that, there's not a lot. Like there's just the ones that the models that were released when they came out,
Mhm.
and then that's like really it.
Yeah,
don't-
no, as I was about to say, that's pretty much all I've got, because that is everything foundational and that you want to know about the Leagues of Votann. They have no novels, they've got no audiobooks, no nothing, which really bugs me, because the best time to release one is when the army is released.
Yeah,
And yet when the Lion came back, he got like 2 books, and when he came back, and then his sub-faction already have like 10 plus books already.
Yeah,
but
and
it's crazy.
there's not even any notable stories that they feature in that I've heard about.
But it's crazy that in the pages of Warhammer that I'm in, like I very rarely see anything to do with like the Votann. But then like an army like Night Lords or something seem like super popular, and yet like the Night Lords get, or like
Well,
an
that-
army that is more popular.
Yeah, no, that's simple. That's because the Night Lords are interesting and the Votann
Yeah.
aren't.
Now, here's the thing: like the Leagues of Votann are very interesting enough, and what I was reading, I was actually getting into. It's just that I would get to the end of the page and I'm like, oh, that's it. Like, for example, they've only got one character. They've only got one named model character, and that's Karl Uther the Destined of the Great Arthurian League, wielding the Blade of Ancestors. He's the one in that picture there with the red blade in the main one. His story is a bit interesting, and I would love to read a book about this guy. The Votann put out this weird prophecy saying that one child born today will be destined for great things, and then at that same time, the Forge machine spat out this beautifully made sword. And then they checked the Crucible and found only one baby had been created by the Crucible on that day. And since then, he was named Uthar the Destined and given enormous expectations to live up to, which he has, ever since their first battle with Chaos.
Like there's no other like named characters. There's no other like.
Like, here's the thing: there's a couple of named characters, but at the same time, like they're not. It's only like passing glances in the Codex.
I let people get like a couple of sentences describing them.
Yeah, and that's literally it. And then he's the one that has the biggest like biography about them.
I've got him. I've got that mini.
Oh, you have that mini?
Yeah, that's the one that I've got.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have the only named character in the Greater Leagues of Leagues of Votann.
I had a feeling that you were going to pull up that picture,
Mm.
but yeah, because that was the one that I saw that was like, oh, this is like a cool looking mini.
Mm.
So it's like one of the only Votann things that I have, I think.
Do
Yeah.
we have any
And-
pictures of them outside of their armor? Because, like, are they actually fat? Because
would
all of
assume
their
so.
armor seems to be, like, covering a bare belly.
I'll double check.
They do seem very like pub dad, like dad bod sort of.
Yeah, like, the armor's doing all the work. They're not really that strong or fit. But then that's kind of like the dwarf
Or maybe they
aesthetic,
are.
I guess.
No, not really. I haven't found one.
Yeah. It's just
Either way,
like-
they look cool with the armor on. That's all I need to know about. No, not as far as I know.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
sure there's some in Rule 43. What is it? Rule.
Yeah. Cut
Anyway.
you off there.
Uh,
But yeah, they're a good army to play as they use those judgment tokens. And they do have exciting lore so far, but it just feels like that they've been sitting on this potential for a couple of years now, and I don't know what they're waiting for, because honestly, the Lion and the Space Marines have taken up all the spotlight, and that might be the reason.
the intrigue isn't there for me. I'm trying not to spend the entire episode shitting on him, but like
There is one that I've missed. It's called the Trans-Hyperion Alliance, and there are like orange and black and white, but again, same thing. Not a lot of lore about them. And yeah, I just feel I want more. I want to be invested in these guys, and I want a good book to come out about some of these characters. My feeling is that whenever they get their 10th edition codex in the next 2 to 3 years, or whenever they do, that's probably when the next novel is going to come out for them. Yeah, just a little bit more on the one that I missed, the Trans-Siberian Alliance. They're very nomadic. They're very much into like doing what are called kin prospects, where they go out into space and try and find like minerals and all that kind of stuff. So, and they've got the orange and black color scheme in case that's what you're more after. But again, not a lot of lore. I just looked at it now and I read the whole thing while you guys were talking.
So,
yeah,
anything else notable that you want to mention about the Votann?
Nah, that's it. That's literally all they've got.
It just seems like they're forgotten.
A bit forgotten, and I hope that they're not. I hope they get some more love. But yeah, we're gonna roll out the episode there. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully, we've turned some people into fans, and hopefully keep this army alive. I don't think they're in the dirt as much as what we're talking about or what we said. Like they probably are. There's probably a large community that loves them, but I just haven't met anyone from them. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't seen anybody run their armies, and honestly, I don't hear about them enough from GW or the community. But yeah, hopefully that changes in the next couple of years because I want to see more out of them.
Yeah. So, what are we planning for our? Have you got a selection of things that James might pick for our next army?
I do. Cut that.
No,
Cut that.
No, it's staying in. No, it's staying in.
Cut that. No, I don't have anything. James, what do you want to know about next?
Think like maybe
an interesting Xenos.
Yeah, like a bigger Xenos army. So maybe.
But what's it? Look at the armies that you've got. Which ones do you want to know more about the most?
Or is there an individual character that you'd like to have a deep dive in? Maybe.
Up to you.
I'm thinking we might go orcs.
Orcs? I'm guessing, Corbin, you're taking that one?
I can take that one.
Yeah, I mean, they're the only... Oh, I suppose I do have some Tyranids, but they're the only, like, other Xenos army that I have that's...
And they're proper smashy, innit?
Yeah, they're pretty cool, so I reckon orkies.
Oh,
right then, orc shit is then next.
Absolutely. Let's get ready for a 2.5 hour episode with Corbin about orcs. My second army.
Why not? We've done like an hour and a half on the fucking space dwarves, which have no lore. Alright, and we're going to wrap up there, guys. See you next time. Have a great time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.